December 19th, 2024, 2:47 p.m. Blackstone Winter Camp, Wyoming.
The crackling sound started small, almost innocent, like dry kindling catching in a distant fireplace. But Rachel Torres knew better. Standing on the wooden deck of the main lodge at Blackstone Winter Camp, she watched the western tree line with growing dread. Thin grey smoke rising in spirals through the frozen pines. The wind carried the scent of burning wood across the snow-covered valley, and every instinct she had developed in 22 years of outdoor education screamed at her that something was terribly wrong. Behind her, 83 children laughed and played in the main hall, their voices echoing off the log walls. They had no idea that in less than an hour, their winter adventure would become a fight for survival. And they had no idea that their salvation would come from something no one would ever believe. Rachel pressed the radio to her lips, her breath fogging in the December cold. "Base, this is Blackstone Camp. Do you copy? We have smoke on the western ridge." Static crackled back, then silence. She tried again. Nothing. The radio towers must be down again. The winter storm 3 days ago had knocked out half the communication infrastructure in the region. They were alone. 83 children, ages 8 to 14, 12 camp counselors, and Rachel, cut off from the world, with a fire growing on the horizon. If stories about impossible survival and the bonds between humans and wild creatures move you, hit subscribe now, because what happens next will challenge everything you thought you knew about nature, loyalty, and the instincts that connect all living things. Now let me tell you how we got here, and what happened when hope seemed lost. Rachel had founded Blackstone Winter Camp 11 years ago, after leaving her position as a wildlife biologist. She wanted to teach children about nature, about respect for the wilderness, about the delicate balance between humans and the wild places that still existed. Winter camps were rare. Most outdoor programs shut down when snow arrived. But Rachel believed winter was when nature showed its true face: raw, honest, unforgiving, and absolutely beautiful. Parents trusted her because she had never lost a child, never had a serious injury, never cut corners on safety. Her record was perfect, until today. The camp sat in a narrow valley surrounded by dense pine forest. The nearest town, Silver Ridge, was 40 miles south along a winding mountain road that became impassable during heavy snow. They had supplies for 2 weeks, emergency protocols for every scenario, backup generators, medical kits, satellite phones that were currently useless because the storm had damaged the equipment. Rachel had checked everything twice before the campers arrived, 5 days ago. She had done everything right. Except she had not planned for a forest fire in December. Forest fires in winter were extremely rare, almost unheard of in Wyoming. But this year had been different. Record low snowfall in November, unusually dry conditions, high winds that stripped moisture from the trees. The Forest Service had issued warnings about fire danger, but those were for summer, not for the middle of winter when temperatures hovered around 15 degrees and snow still covered the ground in patches. Rachel had read the warnings but dismissed them as overcautious. Now, watching the smoke darken from grey to black, she realized her mistake. She ran back inside the lodge, where Counselor Marcus Webb was leading a group discussion about animal tracking. The children sat in a semicircle around the fireplace, their faces bright with interest. Some wore the camp sweatshirts they had decorated on day one. Others had their winter gear piled beside them, ready for the afternoon outdoor activities. They looked so young, so trusting. Rachel felt her chest tighten. "Marcus, I need you outside. Now." Her voice was calm, but Marcus had worked with her for 6 years and he knew that tone. He stood immediately, his smile never faltering as he asked another counselor, Emma Santiago, to take over. The children barely noticed him leave. Rachel led him to the deck and pointed at the western ridge. The smoke had tripled in the last 5 minutes. What had been thin wisps were now thick columns rising hundreds of feet into the air, and beneath the smoke, Rachel could see it. A faint orange glow spreading through the trees like a living thing crawling toward them. "Oh my God," Marcus whispered. "Get everyone inside the main hall now," Rachel said. Lockdown protocol, we're evacuating. Marcus hesitated. Evacuating. Where the road is snowed in from last week, we can't get vehicles through. I know. Rachel's mind was racing through options, all of them bad. The camp had evacuation plans for medical emergencies, for severe weather, but those plans involved roads or helicopter extraction. In winter, with the communication down and smoke building, they had neither. We'll head east on foot. There's an old fire access road 3 miles through the forest. It connects to the highway. 3 miles through the woods with 83 kids in the snow. You have a better idea? Marcus shook his head. I'll get them ready. 15 minutes later, Rachel stood before the assembled camp. She had put on her calm leader face, the one that said everything was under control, even when it was not. The children had stopped laughing now, sensing the tension in the adults around them. The counselors were handing out winter coats, checking that everyone had gloves and hats, organizing them into groups of 7 with 1 counselor per group. Everyone, listen up. Rachel's voice carried across the hall. We're going to take a winter hike today, a real wilderness experience. We're heading east through the forest to meet our transport vehicles. It's about an hour walk, so stay with your groups, follow your counselor, and remember what we taught you about staying together in the woods. A small hand went up. It was Sophie Chen, age 9, one of the youngest campers. Miss Rachel, why is there smoke outside? Rachel had known this question was coming. There's a small brush fire on the far ridge. Nothing dangerous, but we're being extra cautious and moving to a safer location. Think of it as an adventure. The children seemed to accept this. At 9 and 10 years old, they still believed adults had everything figured out. Rachel envied them that innocence. She glanced at Marcus and saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. But when he turned to his group, his smile was back in place, confident and reassuring. They filed out of the lodge in organized lines, 12 groups of 6 or 7 children each. The counselors called out names, checking attendance. Rachel did a final walk through the building, making sure no one was left behind. In the kitchen, she grabbed extra water bottles, stuffed them in a backpack, along with the emergency medical kit. Then she took one last look at the camp she had built, the place that had been her life's work for over a decade, and walked out the door. The smoke had grown heavier. It hung in the air like fog, stinging their eyes and making some of the younger children cough. Rachel led them east toward the tree line, where a narrow trail disappeared into the pines. This trail was one she knew well. She had hiked it hundreds of times in summer and winter. It wound through dense forest for 2 miles before connecting to the old fire access road. From there it was another mile to the highway, where they could flag down help. "Stay close," she called back. "Watch for ice on the path." They moved in a long column through the snow. The children surprisingly quiet. Usually winter hikes were filled with chatter and laughter, but not today. Today they walked in near silence, broken only by the crunch of boots on frozen ground and the occasional cough from the smoke. Rachel checked her watch. 3:20 p.m. They had maybe 2 hours of good daylight left. After that, the temperature would drop, and the forest would become even more dangerous. They were half a mile from camp when Emma ran up beside Rachel, her face pale. "The smoke! It's not just behind us anymore. Look!" Rachel stopped and turned, her heart sinking. Smoke was rising from multiple directions now, not just the west, but also the south. The wind must have carried embers and started new fires. The valley was filling with grey haze, and through it, Rachel could see the orange glow growing brighter, closer. "Keep moving," she ordered. "Faster pace, everyone. Let's pick up the speed." But 20 minutes later, they reached a point where the trail split. One path continued east toward the fire road. The other curved north toward a series of rocky hills. Rachel stopped the group and pulled out her handheld GPS. The device that was supposed to be their backup navigation was showing an error. No signal. She tried rebooting it. Nothing. The smoke was too thick, or the device had failed. Marcus came up beside her. "Which way?" "East should be safe," Rachel said. But even as she spoke, she saw movement in the forest ahead. Not fire, but something else. The trees were swaying, and a rushing sound was building. Then she understood with horrible clarity. The fire was creating its own wind, sucking oxygen toward it, pushing heat and smoke ahead in waves. A wall of thick, grey smoke rolled toward them through the trees, moving faster than she thought possible. Children started screaming. Counsellors shouted for everyone to get down, to cover their faces. But there was nowhere to go. Rachel felt the heat on her skin, even from 200 yards away. This was not a small brush fire anymore. This was something else, something that should not be happening in December, but was. "Back!" she screamed. "Everyone back to the camp!" They turned and ran, the organized groups dissolving into chaos as children stumbled through the snow, the smaller kids falling behind, counselors grabbing hands and pulling them along. Rachel brought up the rear, making sure no one was left, her lungs burning from the smoke. Through the trees, she could see fire now, real flames dancing through the pines, consuming everything. She had seen forest fires before, but never like this, never this fast, never in winter. They burst back into the clearing where Blackstone camp stood. But hope died in Rachel's chest. Smoke was pouring in from 3 directions now. The western ridge was fully engulfed in flames. The southern tree line was burning, and spot fires had started to the north, where embers must have blown in the wind. They were surrounded. "Into the lodge!" she shouted. They crowded inside. 83 children and 12 counsellors, all crammed into the main hall. Some were crying, others coughing from smoke inhalation. Rachel moved among them, checking faces, counting heads. Everyone was accounted for. But that small victory felt hollow when she looked out the window and saw their situation. Marcus grabbed her arm. "Rachel, we can't stay here. Wooden buildings and a forest fire. This place will go up like kindling." "I know. So what do we do?" Rachel had no answer. She had trained for emergencies, had certifications in wilderness first aid, crisis management, child safety. But nothing had prepared her for this. Nothing in her experience covered being trapped in a burning forest with 83 children. She thought about the parents who had trusted her, who had sent their kids to what should have been a safe winter adventure, and felt the weight of that trust crushing her. Then Emma pointed at the north window. "Rachel, look!" Rachel crossed to the window and looked out. Through the smoke, she saw something moving at the edge of the tree line. At first, she thought it was more fire. But the movement was wrong, too deliberate, too purposeful. Then the smoke shifted, and Rachel's breath caught in her throat. A wolf stood at the edge of the clearing, and not just any wolf. It was pure white, its fur almost glowing against the dark smoke behind it. Massive, easily 140 pounds, with eyes that seemed to catch the firelight and reflect it back. The animal stood perfectly still, watching the lodge, and as Rachel stared at it, she felt something impossible, something that made no sense. Recognition. "Everyone, stay away from the windows," Marcus was saying. But Rachel could not look away from the white wolf, because she knew this animal, or at least she thought she did. It was impossible. It had been 15 years, but the shape of the head, the way it stood, the intelligence in those amber eyes. The wolf turned and began walking along the tree line, not running from the fire, but moving with purpose. It stopped, looked back at the lodge, then continued, stopped again, looked back. "It wants us to follow," Rachel whispered. "What?" Marcus was beside her now. "The wolf. It's showing us a path." "Rachel, that's crazy." "I know." And she did know. It was crazy. Animals fled from fire. They did not lead humans to safety. But Rachel also knew something else, something she had never told anyone at the camp. 15 years ago, when she was still a wildlife biologist, she had worked on a wolf reintroduction program in this exact region. She had raised 3 wolf pups that had been orphaned, bottle-fed them, taught them to hunt, and eventually released them into the wild. One of those pups had been pure white, a genetic rarity, and Rachel had named her Luna. Rachel had not seen Luna in 15 years, had assumed the wolf was long dead. Wolves rarely lived past 12 years in the wild. But standing here, watching this white wolf purposefully pacing the tree line, Rachel felt something in her chest crack open. It was impossible. But so was everything else about today. The wolf stopped and looked directly at Rachel through the window. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Rachel made a decision that defied every logical part of her brain. We follow it. 3:35 p.m., Blackstone Winter Camp, Wyoming. Marcus stared at Rachel like she had lost her mind. You want us to follow a wolf through a forest fire with 83 children? Yes. Rachel, listen to yourself. I am listening. Rachel turned to face him, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. We have 3 options. Stay here and burn, try to run through the fire blind and burn, or follow that wolf and maybe survive. Maybe, Marcus repeated. You're gambling 95 lives on maybe. I'm gambling 95 lives on instinct. Rachel looked back at the white wolf still pacing at the tree line. And right now, that's the best option we have. Emma joined them at the window. She was younger than both Rachel and Marcus, only 24, but she had grown up in these mountains. I've heard stories, she said quietly. Old-timers in Silver Ridge talk about white wolves leading lost hikers to safety. I always thought they were just legends. They are legends, Marcus said. So is a forest fire in December, Rachel shot back. She raised her voice, addressing all the counselors. Everyone listen. We're moving out in 2 minutes, north, following the tree line. Stay in tight groups. Do not let any child fall behind. If someone stumbles, you stop and help them. We move together or not at all. The counselors exchanged glances, but they trusted Rachel. They had to. She had never steered them wrong before. Marcus sighed heavily, then nodded. Okay, we do this. But if that wolf leads us into the fire, I'm haunting you in the afterlife. Deal! Rachel managed a tight smile. They gathered the children. Rachel addressed them in a voice that projected calm authority, even though her heart was hammering. We're going on an adventure, a real wilderness survival experience. We're going to follow a very special guide through the forest. You might see a white wolf. Don't be scared. She's here to help us. Stay with your counselor, hold hands if you need to, and trust me. Sophie Chen raised her hand again. Miss Rachel, are we going to die? The question hit like a punch. Several children started crying. Rachel knelt down in front of Sophie, looking her in the eyes. No, sweetheart, we are not going to die. I promise you. We're going to walk through the woods, and we're going to be safe. But I need you to be brave. Can you do that for me? Sophie nodded, her lower lip trembling. Good girl. Rachel stood and looked at the others. Everyone who thinks they can be brave today, raise your hand. Slowly, one by one, 83 hands went up, even the ones who were crying. Rachel felt her throat tighten with emotion. These kids trusted her completely. She could not let them down. They filed out of the lodge into the smoke-filled clearing. Visibility had dropped to maybe 50 feet. The air was thick and acrid. Rachel tied bandanas around the younger children's faces to help them breathe. The counselors did the same. Up ahead, the white wolf waited. When she saw them emerge, the wolf turned and began walking north along the tree line. Rachel followed, and behind her, 94 people moved as one. The wolf set a steady pace, not too fast but not slow either. She seemed to know exactly where she was going, weaving between trees, avoiding patches of thick smoke, staying just ahead of the group, close enough to see, but far enough to lead. They had been walking for 10 minutes when the first child fell. It was Tommy Rodriguez, age 8. He tripped over a hidden root and went down hard. His counselor, Sarah, immediately stopped and helped him up. But the delay caused a gap in the line. Children behind them bunched up. The formation started to break. The white wolf stopped. She turned and looked back at the group. Then she did something that made Rachel's heart skip. The wolf walked back through the line of children, moving between them with such grace and purpose that none of them screamed. She approached Tommy, who was crying from a scraped knee, and she gently nudged his shoulder with her massive head. Tommy stopped crying. His eyes went wide with wonder. The wolf nudged him again, softer this time. then turned and walked back to the front of the line. Tommy stood up, no longer crying. "Did you see that?" he whispered to Sarah. "The wolf touched me." "I saw," Sarah said, her own voice shaking with disbelief. They continued. The smoke grew thicker. Rachel could hear the fire now, a constant roar like a freight train bearing down on them. Flames were visible through the trees to their left, orange and red consuming everything. The heat was intense, even from a distance. Children were coughing despite the bandanas. Some were crying quietly, but they kept walking, following the white wolf who never hesitated, never showed fear. Emma moved up beside Rachel. "Where is she taking us?" "I don't know," Rachel admitted, "but she knows this forest better than we do. How can you be sure?" Rachel thought about those 3 pups she had raised 15 years ago, how she had taught them to navigate terrain, to find water, to identify safe shelter. Luna had been the smartest of the 3, the one who learned fastest, who seemed to understand things beyond simple animal instinct. "I just am." They reached a point where the path narrowed. Rocky outcroppings rose on either side, creating a natural corridor barely wide enough for 2 people. The white wolf paused at the entrance, looking back to make sure everyone saw where to go. Then she disappeared into the passage. "Single file," Marcus called out. "Counselors in front and back of each group." They squeezed through the narrow passage. It was slow going with the children. Some were scared of the tight space. Others were exhausted and stumbling. Rachel moved up and down the line, encouraging, helping, making sure no one panicked. The rocks provided some protection from the smoke. The air was slightly clearer here. People could breathe a little easier. But halfway through the passage, Rachel heard something that stopped her cold. A deep, rumbling crack. She looked up and saw flames dancing along the top of the rock face. The fire had jumped the ravine. It was above them now, and as she watched, a burning tree came crashing down. It fell directly toward the middle of the group, where 12 children were walking. "Move!" Rachel screamed, but there was nowhere to move. The passage was too narrow, the children too packed together. The burning tree fell in terrible slow motion. Rachel ran toward them, knowing she could not reach them in time. And then the white wolf appeared. She had somehow climbed the rocks, somehow gotten above the group, and as the tree fell, the wolf launched herself at it. 140 pounds of pure muscle hitting the trunk mid-fall, deflecting it just enough that it crashed into the rock wall instead of crushing the children. The impact sent the wolf tumbling. She hit the ground hard, rolled, and lay still. No, Rachel reached the wolf's side. The animal's white fur was singed, her breathing labored, blood trickled from her mouth. But her eyes were still alert, still focused. She tried to stand, fell back, tried again. Rachel did something she knew was dangerous. She knelt beside the wolf and placed her hand on the animal's head. "Luna," she whispered, "I know it's you. I know you remember me." The wolf's amber eyes met hers, and Rachel saw recognition there, clear and unmistakable. The animal made a soft sound, almost a whine. Then, with tremendous effort, she pushed herself to her feet. She was limping badly, favoring her left side, but she was moving. "We need to help her." Sophie had appeared at Rachel's side. "We need to help ourselves," Marcus said gently, pulling Sophie back. "That wolf saved us, but we can't carry an injured wild animal." But the white wolf was not waiting to be carried. Despite her injuries, she began walking again, slower now, each step obviously painful, but determined. She led them through the rest of the passage and out into a wider area where the smoke was less dense. Here the forest opened into a small meadow, and on the far side, Rachel could see something that made hope bloom in her chest. A frozen lake, at least 200 yards across, the ice thick and solid from the weeks of cold weather. And beyond the lake, the forest continued, but the trees were different. Greener, less dry, less likely to burn. If they could cross the lake, they might reach safety. The white wolf walked to the edge of the ice, tested it with one paw, then looked back at Rachel. "She wants us to cross," Emma said. Marcus shook his head. "Ice might not hold all of us. We're talking 95 people." "It'll hold," Rachel said. She had been watching the lake. It was clearly frozen solid, probably a foot thick at least. Everyone spread out. Don't bunch up. Walk in a line, 10 feet between each person. They organized quickly. The counselors took positions, spacing the children out. Rachel went first, testing the ice. It was solid. She walked 20 feet out, then gestured for the others to follow. Slowly, carefully, they began crossing. The ice creaked under their weight, making ominous sounds that scared the children, but it held. The white wolf waited on the shore until everyone was on the ice. Then she stepped out herself. Her injured leg made her gait uneven. She left small spots of blood on the white surface. Rachel wanted to go back and help her, but she needed to keep the children moving. The fire was still coming, smoke rolling across the meadow behind them, flames now visible at the tree line. They were halfway across when Rachel heard it, a sound that made her blood run cold, cracking, deep and resonant. The ice was breaking. She looked down and saw a spiderweb of fractures spreading from a point about 30 feet to her left, where 10 children were clustered together, despite instructions to spread out. "Move apart," she shouted. "Spread out now!" But panic had set in. The children heard the cracking, and instead of spreading out, they huddled closer together, their combined weight concentrating on one weak point. The cracks spread faster. Marcus ran toward them, but he was too far away. The ice gave a final groan and collapsed. 10 children plunged into the freezing water. Chaos erupted, children screaming, counselors running. The water was only about 8 feet deep, but it was Arctic cold. Hypothermia would set in within minutes. Rachel ran to the edge of the hole. Other counselors were already there pulling children out, but the current under the ice was stronger than expected. It was pulling some of them away from the opening. Rachel saw Sophie Chen go under, the little girl's arms flailing, then disappearing beneath the ice. "No!" Rachel dove in without thinking. The cold hit her like a physical blow. It drove the air from her lungs, froze her muscles. But she saw Sophie below her, and she grabbed the girl's coat, pulled her up, dragged her to the surface. Marcus and Emma hauled them both out. Rachel's entire body was shaking violently, her fingers blue. Sophie was unconscious. Rachel turned her on her side. Water poured from the girl's mouth. Then she coughed, gasped, started breathing. "8 more still in the water," Emma shouted. Rachel looked at the hole. Counselors were pulling children out, but 2 were missing. She could see them through the ice, trapped underneath, swimming in the wrong direction, away from the opening. They had maybe seconds before they ran out of air, and no one could reach them. The white wolf appeared at the edge of the hole. Despite her injuries, she dove into the water without hesitation. She disappeared under the ice. Rachel watched in disbelief as the wolf swam beneath the frozen surface, a white shape moving through green water. She reached the first child, grabbed the back of the boy's jacket in her teeth, and pulled him back toward the opening. It took her 20 seconds. 20 seconds of holding her breath in water that would kill most animals. But she made it, broke the surface, and Marcus pulled the child out. The wolf went under again, this time for the last child, a girl of 12 who had stopped moving. The wolf grabbed her and swam back, but when they surfaced, the girl was not breathing. Rachel took her from the wolf's mouth and started CPR, counting compressions, breathing into the girl's mouth. The entire camp watching in horrified silence. 30 seconds passed, a minute. The girl was not responding. Rachel kept going. She would not stop. She could not stop. And then the girl coughed. Water sprayed from her mouth. Her eyes opened. She was alive. All 10 children were out of the water, all alive, all breathing. But they were soaked and freezing. Hypothermia was setting in fast. Rachel's hands were shaking so badly she could barely function. They needed warmth, shelter, and they needed it now. The white wolf climbed out of the water, her white fur now plastered to her body. She was shivering as hard as the children. The exertion and the cold had taken a terrible toll. Blood was flowing more freely from her mouth. Her breathing was ragged, but still she moved. She shook herself once, then began walking toward the far shore, slower than before. Each step, a visible struggle. "We have to keep moving." Rachel's voice was slurred from the cold. "Everyone who's wet, stay in the middle. Share body heat. We're almost there." They finished crossing the lake, the white wolf leading them step by painful step. When they reached the far shore, Rachel collapsed to her knees. The children who had been in the water were all showing signs of severe hypothermia, shaking, pale, lips blue. They had minutes, not hours. They needed fire and dry clothes immediately. The white wolf walked a few more steps into the forest. Then she stopped at the base of a massive pine tree. She pawed at the ground, then looked back at Rachel and whined. Rachel forced herself to stand and walked over. The wolf had uncovered something, a metal grate set into the ground. Rachel brushed away more pine needles and saw it clearly. An old fire service access bunker, probably abandoned decades ago, but it might have supplies. She pulled at the grate. It was rusted shut. Marcus and two other counselors helped her, heaved together, and the grate screeched open, revealing a ladder leading down into darkness. "Everyone down," Rachel ordered. "Counselors, help the children. Move quickly." They climbed down one by one into the bunker. It was small, maybe 20 feet by 20 feet, concrete walls, completely dark. But it was dry and protected from the wind. More importantly, Rachel found what she desperately needed. In the corner were old emergency supplies, wool blankets from the 1980s, waterproof matches, even some canned food that was decades past expiration but still sealed. "Get the wet children out of their clothes and wrapped in blankets," Rachel instructed. "Huddle together for warmth." The counselors moved efficiently. They had trained for hypothermia scenarios. Within minutes, all 10 children who had been in the water were stripped, dried as best as possible, and wrapped in blankets, surrounded by other children sharing body heat. Rachel herself was still soaking wet and freezing, but she ignored it. There was one more thing she needed to do. She climbed back up the ladder. Outside, the forest was darkening, sunset was coming, and with it, temperatures would plummet. The fire was still burning in the distance, but the greener trees of this area were providing a barrier. For the moment, they were safe. The white wolf was lying near the entrance to the bunker. She had collapsed onto her side, her breathing shallow and labored. The dive into the freezing water had pushed her beyond her limits. Rachel knelt beside the animal. She could see now that the wolf's injuries were severe. A broken rib, probably from the impact with the tree, lacerations on her legs, and something else, something that made Rachel's heart ache. The wolf was old, far older than she had initially thought. Her muzzle was graying, her body was thin beneath the wet fur. "Luna," Rachel whispered, stroking the wolf's head. "You saved them. You saved all of us." The wolf's eyes opened, those amber eyes that Rachel had looked into 15 years ago when Luna was just a pup. There was intelligence there, recognition, and something that looked almost like peace. "I need you to hold on," Rachel said, "just a little longer. When help comes, I'm going to make sure you get to a vet. We're going to take care of you like you took care of us." The wolf made a soft sound, almost like a sigh, then she closed her eyes. Rachel sat beside her as darkness fell over the forest. She could hear the children below in the bunker, their voices echoing up. They were scared, but they were alive. All 83 of them, plus 12 counselors, not a single life lost, despite everything that had happened. And it was because of this white wolf, this animal that should have run from the fire, that should have saved itself, but instead had led 95 people through hell to safety. Rachel pulled off her wet jacket and draped it over the wolf. It was not much, but it was something. She would not leave Luna alone, not after everything. She sat there in the freezing December night, watching over the animal that had watched over them, and she waited for dawn. December 19th, 2024, 11:47 p.m. Emergency bunker, Wyoming wilderness. Rachel woke to the sound of helicopter rotors cutting through the night air. She had dozed off sitting against the bunker entrance, with Luna's head resting on her lap. The wolf was still breathing, but barely, each exhale coming in shallow rattles that terrified Rachel. She looked up through the trees and saw searchlights sweeping across the forest. The rescue teams had finally arrived. "Down here!" she shouted, waving her arms. "We're down here!" The helicopter hovered overhead, a spotlight pinning Rachel in its cell beam. A voice crackled through a loudspeaker. "This is Wyoming Search and Rescue. How many are you?" 95 total, Rachel called back. 83 children, 12 adults, 10 with hypothermia but stable. We need immediate medical evacuation. The helicopter circled once more, then moved to a clearing about 200 yards away where it could land safely. Within minutes, Rachel heard voices and saw lights moving through the trees. A team of paramedics and rescue workers emerged from the darkness, led by a man in his 50s with a weathered face and a search and rescue jacket. "I'm Captain David Morris," he said, approaching Rachel. "We've been looking for you for 6 hours. Are you Rachel Torres?" "Yes." Rachel tried to stand, but her legs would not cooperate. She had been sitting in wet clothes in below freezing temperatures for hours. Morris immediately called for a medic. "Get her warmed up and checked for hypothermia," he ordered. Then he saw Luna lying beside Rachel and stopped. "Is that a wolf?" "She saved us," Rachel said, her voice cracking. "She led us through the fire, saved children from drowning. She's badly injured, and I need you to help her." Morris stared at the white wolf, clearly trying to process what Rachel was saying. "Ma'am, wolves don't lead people to safety." "This one did." Rachel grabbed his arm with what little strength she had left. "Captain, please. She's dying. You have wildlife rescue protocols. Call a veterinary team. Do something." Morris studied Rachel's face, saw the desperation and sincerity there. Then he nodded to one of his team. "Get wildlife services on the radio. Tell them we have an injured wolf that needs immediate transport." "Sir," the team member hesitated. "Just do it," Morris said firmly. While medics attended to Rachel, the rescue operation shifted into high gear. Teams descended into the bunker and began carefully bringing out children. Each one was assessed for injuries, wrapped in thermal blankets, and carried to the helicopter for transport to Silver Ridge Regional Hospital. The children who had been in the freezing water were prioritized, loaded onto the first helicopter, along with 3 counselors. Marcus emerged from the bunker, coordinating the evacuation. When he saw Rachel, he rushed over. "You look like hell." "I feel like hell," Rachel managed a weak smile. "Everyone okay down there?" "Cold, scared, but alive." Marcus glanced at Luna. "The wolf made it through the night." "Barely." "Rachel, what you did today, following that animal, I thought you were crazy, but you saved 95 lives." "She saved 95 lives," Rachel corrected. "I just trusted her." The evacuation took 2 hours, helicopter after helicopter landing in the clearing, loading up children and counselors, flying them to safety. Rachel insisted on being evacuated last, despite protests from the medics. She would not leave until Luna was taken care of. Finally, a wildlife services truck arrived. 2 veterinarians climbed out carrying a specialized stretcher. Dr. Jennifer Walsh was a wildlife vet Rachel had worked with years ago during the wolf reintroduction program. She took one look at the white wolf, and her eyes widened. "My God, is that Luna?" "You remember her?" Rachel felt tears stinging her eyes. "I remember all 3 of the pups we released." Jennifer knelt beside the wolf, her hands moving with practiced efficiency, checking vitals, examining injuries. "She's in bad shape, Rachel. Broken ribs, internal bleeding possibly, severe exhaustion and hypothermia. At her age—" "Her age?" Rachel asked. "She's at least 15 years old," Jennifer said quietly. "That's ancient for a wild wolf. Most don't make it past 12. Whatever she did today, it cost her everything she had left." They loaded Luna onto the stretcher with extreme care. The wolf did not struggle, did not even open her eyes. Jennifer started an IV line, administered pain medication and fluids. Then they carried her to the truck. Rachel followed, climbing into the back despite Jennifer's protests. "I'm coming with her," Rachel said. It was not a request. Jennifer nodded, understanding. They drove through the night, following the convoy of emergency vehicles. The roads were treacherous with ice and snow, but they moved as fast as safely possible. Rachel sat beside Luna's stretcher, holding the wolf's paw, talking to her, telling her to hold on, promising her that everything would be okay, even though she had no idea if that was true. They reached Silver Ridge Regional at 3:30 a.m. The hospital was chaos, 83 children being processed through emergency, parents arriving from across the state in various states of panic and relief, news crews setting up outside despite the late hour. Somehow word had already spread about the winter campfire and the miraculous survival of all the children. Jennifer took Luna directly to the veterinary clinic attached to the hospital, a small facility that normally handled domestic animals, but was equipped for emergency wildlife care. She assembled a team and they went to work. Rachel watched through the observation window as they X-rayed Luna's chest, treated her wounds, stabilized her breathing. An hour later, Jennifer emerged, exhausted. "She's alive. I honestly don't know how, but she's stable for now. We've got her on oxygen, pain management, and antibiotics for the water aspiration." "But Rachel," she paused, "her injuries are extensive. Even if she survives the next 48 hours, her quality of life, she may never walk properly again, may never be able to return to the wild." "Then we keep her safe," Rachel said firmly. "Sanctuary, rehabilitation, whatever it takes." "That's not how wildlife services works. If an animal can't be released—" "I don't care how it works," Rachel's voice was steel. "That wolf saved 95 lives today. If the bureaucracy says we have to put her down, then the bureaucracy is wrong. I'll fight this. I'll take it to the governor if I have to." Jennifer smiled slightly. "I was hoping you'd say that. Let me make some calls." Rachel was finally forced to get her own medical treatment. She was diagnosed with moderate hypothermia, exhaustion, and minor frostbite on 3 fingers. The doctors wanted to admit her overnight, but she refused. She had children to check on, parents to talk to, a camp to account for. She found Marcus in the hospital cafeteria at 5 a.m., surrounded by counselors. They all looked like they had aged 10 years in one day. When Rachel entered, they stood and applauded, the sound echoing in the empty space. Rachel felt her throat tighten. "All 83 kids are going to be fine," Marcus reported. 10 are being kept for observation because of the water exposure. But the doctors say they'll make full recoveries. No permanent damage, not one serious injury in the group. It's a miracle, Rachel. "It's Luna." Rachel sat down heavily. "How are the parents?" "Grateful, shocked, demanding answers," Emma said. "And the media is going crazy. Every news outlet in the region is outside. They're calling it the miracle at Blackstone camp." "They don't know about Luna." "Actually, they do." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Rachel a video. It was from one of the older kids, filmed on a phone that had somehow survived the ordeal. The footage was shaky but clear enough. It showed the white wolf leading the group through smoke, showed her diving into the freezing water, showed her collapsing by the bunker entrance. The video had been posted 3 hours ago and already had 2 million views. The comments were filled with disbelief, wonder, and debate about whether it was real. #WhiteWolfRescue was trending on social media. "People need to know this story," Emma said softly. "They need to know what she did." Rachel watched the video again, seeing Luna's courage, her determination, her impossible decision to save humans instead of herself. "Then we tell them, but we tell it right. This isn't entertainment. This is about an animal that showed more humanity than most humans I've known." The sun was rising when Rachel finally went to see the children. They had been separated into different rooms based on their condition. She started with the 10 who had been in the water. They were awake and eating breakfast when she entered. Sophie Chen saw her first. "Miss Rachel!" The little girl scrambled out of bed and hugged Rachel tight. "You saved me." "Luna saved you, sweetheart." Rachel knelt down. "I just pulled you out. She's the one who got you back to the opening." "Is she okay?" Tommy Rodriguez asked. "The wolf, I mean. Is she going to be all right?" "The doctors are taking care of her," Rachel said carefully. "She's very sick, but she's strong." "She has to be okay," Sophie insisted. "She's a hero." Rachel spent the next 2 hours visiting every child, answering their questions, reassuring them, listening to their stories about the ordeal. Some were still scared, some were excited. All of them asked about Luna. They had bonded with the white wolf in a way Rachel had never seen children bond with a wild animal. They felt protective of her, grateful to her, connected to her. At 9 a.m., Rachel was called to a conference room where Captain Morris and a woman in a suit were waiting. The woman introduced herself as Director Patricia Hammond from the Wyoming Wildlife Services. "Miss Torres," Hammond began, "I've been briefed on yesterday's events, and I've reviewed the video evidence. I need to understand what happened out there." Rachel told the story from beginning to end. The fire, the decision to follow Luna, the lake crossing, the bunker, everything. Hammond listened without interrupting, taking notes, her expression unreadable. When Rachel finished, Hammond sat back. "What you're describing is unprecedented. Wolves don't exhibit this kind of behavior. They don't lead humans to safety. They don't sacrifice themselves for people they don't know." "Luna knew me," Rachel said. 15 years ago, I raised her from a pup. We had a bond." 15 years ago, Hammond repeated. "Miss Torres, wolves don't remember individual humans for 15 years, their cognitive capacity." "Then explain what happened," Rachel challenged. "Explain how 95 people survived a forest fire that killed everything in a 5-mile radius. Explain the video. Explain the testimonies from 12 adult counselors who all saw the same thing." Hammond was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I can't explain it. And that's a problem. My agency has protocols for dealing with wildlife. Injured animals are either rehabilitated and released or humanely euthanized. We don't have a protocol for hero wolves." Rachel felt her temper rising. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying this situation is complicated." Hammond pulled out a folder. "The wolf you call Luna has severe injuries. Dr. Walsh's report indicates she may never be able to hunt or survive in the wild again. Under normal circumstances, we would recommend euthanasia to prevent suffering." "No," Rachel stood up. "Absolutely not." "Let me finish," Hammond raised a hand. "However, these are not normal circumstances. This wolf has captured national attention. The video has gone viral. We're getting calls from news organizations, wildlife advocacy groups, even politicians. There's enormous public pressure to save this animal." "Good," Rachel said. "But there are complications," Hammond continued. "If we keep Luna alive, we need a permanent solution, a sanctuary willing to take her, funding for her care, legal approvals. And most importantly, we need to make sure this doesn't set a precedent that encourages people to interfere with wild wolves." "She interfered with us," Rachel pointed out. "She made the choice to help. We're just honoring that choice." Hammond studied Rachel for a long moment. Then she made a decision. "I'm going to approve temporary protected status for the wolf. We'll transfer her to the Mountain Ridge Wildlife Sanctuary, where she can receive long-term care. Dr. Walsh has agreed to oversee her treatment. But Miss Torres, this is conditional. If Luna's quality of life deteriorates, if she's suffering, we'll have to make hard choices." "I understand." Rachel felt relief wash over her. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Hammond said. "This is going to be a media circus. You need to be prepared for that. Your camp, your reputation, everything is about to be scrutinized." She was right. By noon, the hospital parking lot was packed with news vans. Reporters were camped outside, demanding interviews. The story had exploded across national media. Major networks were running features. Headlines proclaimed, "White Wolf saves 83 children from wildfire," and "Miracle in Wyoming, the wolf that led kids to safety." Rachel gave one press conference, standing outside the hospital with Captain Morris and Director Hammond. She kept it brief, factual, focusing on Luna's actions and the bravery of the children and counselors. She refused to sensationalize or dramatize. This was not about her, it was about an animal that had done something extraordinary. The questions came rapid fire. "Miss Torres, how did you know to trust the wolf? What made you think following a wild animal was safe? Do you believe the wolf understood what she was doing?" Rachel answered each one carefully. But when a reporter asked, "Would you call this a miracle?" she paused. "I don't know if I believe in miracles," she said finally, "but I believe in Luna. I believe she knew exactly what she was doing. I believe she made a choice to save lives instead of saving herself. You can call that whatever you want. I call it extraordinary." The press conference ended, and Rachel returned to the veterinary clinic. Luna was awake now, resting in a large enclosure with soft bedding and constant monitoring. Dr. Walsh let Rachel sit with her. The wolf's amber eyes tracked Rachel as she entered. There was still that spark of intelligence, of recognition. "Hey girl," Rachel sat down carefully. "You're famous now. The whole world knows what you did." Luna made a soft sound, almost like a sigh. Rachel reached out and gently stroked the wolf's head. Luna closed her eyes, leaning into the touch. "They're going to take care of you," Rachel continued. "You're going to a sanctuary where you'll be safe, warm, fed, no more hunting, no more struggling through winter. You've earned your rest, Luna." The wolf opened her eyes and looked at Rachel, and in that look, Rachel saw something that made her breath catch. Gratitude, peace, and something else, a question. "I know," Rachel whispered, understanding somehow. "I know you're tired. I know you've fought for so long. But please hold on a little longer. Those kids need to know you're okay. I need to know you're okay." Luna closed her eyes again, her breathing steady. Rachel sat with her as afternoon faded into evening, watching over the wolf who had watched over 95 people through the worst day of their lives. Outside the clinic window, Rachel could see the sun setting over the mountains. Somewhere out there the forest was still burning. But here in this quiet room with this extraordinary animal, Rachel felt something she had not felt since the ordeal began. Hope. Not just for Luna's survival, but for what her story represented. Proof that the bonds between humans and animals could transcend everything we thought we knew about nature, about instinct, about what was possible when courage and compassion met in the wild. December 22nd, 2024. Mountain Ridge Wildlife Sanctuary, Wyoming. 3 days after the fire. Luna was transferred to the sanctuary. The journey took 4 hours through snowy mountain roads, with Dr. Jennifer Walsh monitoring her vitals every mile. Rachel rode in the transport vehicle, refusing to leave Luna's side. The wolf had shown improvement. Her breathing was stronger, her wounds were beginning to heal, but she was still weak, still fragile, still fighting for every breath. Mountain Ridge Wildlife Sanctuary sat on 200 acres of protected forest land. It was home to injured and non-releasable wildlife: bears, eagles, mountain lions, and now one very famous white wolf. The sanctuary director, Marcus Chen, no relation to Sophie, had prepared a special enclosure for Luna, spacious with natural terrain, a heated shelter for cold nights, and 24-hour veterinary monitoring. When they arrived, a crowd was waiting, not just sanctuary staff, but reporters, wildlife advocates, and somehow word had spread. So there were also dozens of regular people standing in the December cold just to catch a glimpse of the wolf who had saved 83 children. Rachel was overwhelmed by the attention, but Director Chen handled it smoothly. "Everyone will get updates through our official channels," he announced. "But right now, this animal needs peace and quiet to recover. I'm asking you all to respect that." The crowd dispersed reluctantly, cameras still flashing, as the transport vehicle drove to Luna's new enclosure. They moved her carefully onto fresh straw bedding in the heated shelter. Luna's eyes opened as they settled her. She looked around at the unfamiliar space and whined softly. "I know it's scary," Rachel knelt beside her, "but you're safe here, I promise." Dr. Walsh performed a thorough examination. "She's stable, temperature is good, heart rate is improving, the internal bleeding has stopped. I think she's going to make it, Rachel." "You think, or you know?" "In medicine, we never know anything for certain," Jennifer smiled. "But I'm optimistic. She's a fighter." Rachel stayed at the sanctuary for the next week, sleeping in the staff quarters, spending every waking hour with Luna. She watched as the wolf slowly regained strength, first just lifting her head, then sitting up. Then finally, on day 5, standing on shaky legs and taking a few steps. It was progress, painful and slow but undeniable. The children wanted to visit. Rachel received dozens of calls from parents asking if their kids could see Luna. At first she said no, the wolf needed rest. But Dr. Walsh had a different perspective. Animal therapy is a real thing, Jennifer said, and honestly, I think seeing the kids might help Luna, remind her what she fought for. So, on December 28th, Rachel organized a supervised visit, 10 children at a time, starting with the ones who had been in the water. Sophie Chen was in the first group. She approached the enclosure fence, holding her mother's hand, nervous but excited. Luna was resting in
her shelter, but when she heard Sophie's voice, she lifted her head.
"Miss Luna," Sophie called softly. "It's me, Sophie. You saved me." The white wolf stood up. It was still an effort, but she managed. She walked to the fence and looked at Sophie through the wire mesh. Their eyes met, and Sophie started crying. "Thank you," the little girl whispered. "Thank you for not letting me die." Luna pressed her nose against the fence. Sophie reached up and touched it with her small hand. The connection between them was visible, undeniable. Rachel felt tears in her own eyes watching it. Over the next 2 days, all 83 children visited. Each one had their moment with Luna. Some brought gifts, drawings of white wolves, stuffed animals, letters written in crayon. The sanctuary staff collected everything and displayed it around Luna's enclosure. The wolf seemed to understand. She greeted each child, let them talk to her. Even the shyest ones found courage when they saw those amber eyes looking back at them with what could only be described as gentle recognition. Tommy Rodriguez brought his drawing of the moment Luna had nudged him after he fell. "I'm going to be a wildlife ranger when I grow up," he told Rachel. "Like you, so I can protect wolves like Luna." "That's a wonderful dream," Rachel said. "It's not a dream," Tommy was serious. "It's a promise." The media attention continued, but it shifted from sensationalism to something deeper. Documentaries were being planned. Wildlife organizations were using Luna's story to advocate for wolf conservation. Donations poured into the sanctuary, enough to cover Luna's care for years and expand programs for other animals. Something good was coming from the tragedy. On New Year's Eve, Rachel sat in Luna's enclosure. It was snowing lightly. The wolf was resting beside her, stronger now, eating regularly, walking without limping. The veterinarians were calling it a remarkable recovery, almost miraculous. Rachel stroked Luna's fur and thought about everything that had happened. "You know what I realized?" she said quietly. "You didn't just save those children, you saved me too. I was going through the motions before the fire, running the camp, but not really living. Too scared to take risks, too careful to trust my instincts. But you reminded me what real courage looks like, making impossible choices because they're right, not because they're safe." Luna turned her head and looked at Rachel. In the moonlight, her white fur seemed to glow. She made a soft sound, almost like she was answering. "I'm going to rebuild the camp," Rachel continued. "I know it sounds crazy after what happened, but those kids, they learned something out there that no classroom could teach them. They learned about bravery, about trust, about the connection between humans and nature. I can't let that go. I won't." The wolf rested her head on Rachel's lap, a gesture of trust and affection that felt almost domesticated. But Luna was not domestic, she was wild. And somehow that
made the moment even more precious. January brought a new challenge. Director Chen called a meeting with Rachel and Dr. Walsh. His expression was troubled. "We have a situation. Luna's blood work came back from the lab. There's something we didn't expect." Rachel's heart sank. "What is it? Is she sick?" "No," Jennifer interrupted. "Rachel, Luna is pregnant." The words hit like a thunderbolt. "That's impossible. She was with us for over a week. Before that, she was leading us through the fire." "Wolves can carry pregnancies through incredible stress," Jennifer explained. "And given her age and condition, we almost missed it. But the ultrasound confirmed it.
She's carrying at least 3 pups, maybe 4. They're due in about 6 weeks. Rachel sat down heavily. At her age, with her injuries, can she survive a pregnancy? It's risky, Jennifer admitted. Very risky. The delivery alone could kill her. And even if she survives, caring for pups at 15 years old with broken ribs that are still healing. We could terminate the pregnancy, Director Chen suggested gently. It would be safer for Luna. No, Rachel said immediately, then softer. No. Luna made her choice to save those children, even though it could have killed her. We don't get to take away her choice to have these pups. We support her. We give her the best care possible, and we let nature take its course. Rachel. I know the risks, Rachel met Jennifer's eyes, but Luna has beaten every odd already. If she's going to have pups, then we're going to help her do it safely. The news leaked within days. Of course it did. Miracle Wolf, expecting pups, became another viral headline. The sanctuary was flooded with calls, offers of help, donations, specifically for Luna's prenatal care. Wildlife experts from around the country contacted Jennifer, offering advice and support. Luna seemed unbothered by all the attention. She continued to recover. Her appetite increased. Her energy levels rose. By mid-January, she was walking normally, even playing gently with the enrichment toys the staff provided. Her belly was beginning to show, a small roundness that grew each week. Rachel visited every day. She had started working on plans to rebuild Blackstone camp. The old site was destroyed, but there was land available near the sanctuary. She could build something new, something better, incorporate what Luna had taught her about trust and connection. Parents were already inquiring about next winter's session, despite everything that had happened, or maybe because of it. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, Rachel was sitting with Luna when the wolf suddenly stood up and walked to the far corner of her shelter. She began pawing at the straw, arranging it, creating a nest. "Jennifer," Rachel called. "I think it's time." The birth took 7 hours. Dr. Walsh and her team monitored constantly, ready to intervene if necessary. But Luna did it herself. 4 pups were born, one by one. Luna cleaned each one, nudged them to her belly, let
them nurse. She was exhausted, but her maternal instincts were perfect, strong. The pups were healthy, 2 males and 2 females, and 3 of them had normal grey and brown colouring. But the 4th, the smallest, was pure white, just like her mother. Rachel watched through the observation window as Luna curled around her babies, protecting them, warming them. This wolf who had almost died, saving human children, was now a mother herself. The circle felt complete somehow, perfect. She did it. Jennifer stood beside Rachel. "I honestly didn't think she would make it through. The odds were—" "Luna doesn't care about odds," Rachel smiled. "She never has." The pups grew quickly. Within weeks, they were tumbling over each other, playing, exploring their enclosure under Luna's watchful eyes. The sanctuary opened limited viewing hours, allowing small groups to observe from a distance. Children came from all over the state. Many of them were the same kids Luna had saved. They stood at the fence, watching the white pup wrestle with her siblings, and Rachel saw something in their faces. Wonder, connection, hope. Sophie Chen came with her parents in March. The little white pup, who the staff had named Aurora, approached the fence curiously. Sophie knelt down. "Hi, Aurora. I'm Sophie. Your mum saved my life." The pup tilted her head as if listening. Then she did something remarkable. She sat down and placed her tiny paw against the fence, right where Sophie's hand was. The same gesture Luna had made weeks ago. Like mother, like daughter. The crowd watching gasped and cameras flashed, but Rachel barely noticed. She was watching Luna, who sat nearby, observing the interaction with what could only be described as approval. Spring arrived. The forest around the sanctuary came back to life. The burned areas were already showing signs of regrowth. Nature's resilience never ceased to amaze Rachel. She had finalized the plans for the new Blackstone winter camp. Construction would begin in summer. The first session was scheduled for December 2025, 1 year after the fire. Parents were not just signing their kids up,
They were volunteering to help, offering donations. The camp had become something bigger than Rachel had ever imagined, a symbol of survival and the extraordinary bonds possible between humans and nature. She had decided to name it Luna's Haven, in honor of the wolf who had made it all possible. In April, Dr. Walsh declared Luna fully recovered. Her ribs had healed, her weight was healthy, she was caring for her pups beautifully. The question now was what would happen when the pups were old enough to be independent. Normally, they would be released into the wild, but Luna could not be released. She was too famous, too habituated to human presence. After months in the sanctuary, Director Chen suggested a compromise. We keep Luna here permanently. She's become our ambassador animal. Kids come from everywhere to see her. She's teaching an entire generation about wolf conservation. But the pups, when they're old enough, if they show wild behavior, we could consider a soft release. Monitor them, see if they can survive on their own. It was a good plan. Rachel agreed to it. The pups were showing strong wild instincts, despite being born in captivity. They avoided unfamiliar humans, practiced hunting behaviors on their toys. Aurora, the white pup, was the boldest, the most curious. She had her mother's intelligence, her fearlessness. Summer came, and with it, the beginning of construction on Luna's Haven. Rachel split her time between the sanctuary and the building site. Luna's pups were now 4 months old, nearly independent.
2 males and 1 grey female were already showing signs they would thrive in the wild. But Aurora was different. She was drawn to the observation windows, curious about the human visitors, protective of the other animals in the sanctuary. "She's got her mother's spirit," Jennifer observed one day. "That one's going to be special." In September, the pups were released into a protected area adjacent to the sanctuary. They would be monitored, given supplemental food if needed, but allowed to roam free. Luna watched from her enclosure as her babies disappeared into the forest. She howled once, long and mournful, then settled down, her job complete. But Aurora did not stay gone. Within 3 days, she was back at the sanctuary fence. She had not come for food. The wildlife cameras showed her hunting successfully. She came because she wanted to be near the place where humans were, near her mother, near something she seemed to understand mattered. "We can't force her to leave," Director Chen said. "If she keeps coming back, maybe she's choosing to stay, like her mother chose to save those children. Maybe Aurora is making her own choice about who she wants to be." Rachel thought about that, about choice, about the moments that define us. Luna had chosen to lead 95 people through fire instead of saving herself. Aurora was choosing to stay connected to humans instead of disappearing into the wilderness. Both choices were equally valid, equally extraordinary. December 2025 arrived, 1 year since the fire. Luna's Haven opened its doors for the first winter session. 65 children signed up. Many of them were returnees from the original Blackstone camp. They had asked their parents to send them back. Tommy Rodriguez was there, Sophie Chen, half the kids who had been through the fire. They were not scared. They were excited. They wanted to learn more, to experience the wilderness again. Rachel stood in the main lodge of the new camp, looking at the children gathered around the fireplace. The building was beautiful, modern but rustic, large windows overlooking the forest. And in the place of honor, above the fireplace was a painting of a white wolf standing in the snow. Underneath it read, "In honor of Luna, who taught us that courage knows no boundaries." "Welcome to Luna's Haven," Rachel addressed the group. "You're here because you believe in the connection between humans and nature, because you want to learn, to grow, to challenge yourselves. Some of you were with me last year. You know what we survived. You know what Luna did for us. This camp exists because of her sacrifice, because of what she taught us about trust and bravery." The children listened with rapt attention. Outside the window, snow was beginning to fall. Winter had returned. But this time, Rachel was ready. This time she had backup plans, emergency protocols, satellite communication that actually worked. She would never be caught unprepared again. "Tomorrow we're taking a field trip to the sanctuary," Rachel continued. "You're going to meet Luna. She's doing well. She had 4 pups and they're beautiful. One of them, Aurora, has chosen to stay near the sanctuary. If we're lucky, we might see her too. Sophie raised her hand. Miss Rachel, do you think Luna remembers us? I know she does, sweetheart. Rachel smiled. Wolves never forget. The next day, 65 children stood at Luna's enclosure. The white wolf emerged from her shelter, moving with grace and power, fully healed, strong, beautiful. She approached the fence and looked at the children, her amber eyes scanning the faces. When she saw Sophie, she made a soft sound of recognition. The children were silent, awestruck. Then Tommy spoke up. Thank you, Luna. You're the bravest animal I've ever known. One by one, the other children echoed him, creating a chorus of gratitude. Luna sat down and listened, her tail wagging slightly, and Rachel saw it, the moment when animal and humans connected across a boundary that should not exist, but somehow did. From the forest beyond the sanctuary came a howl, clear and strong, Aurora announcing her presence. Luna's head turned toward the sound, and she howled back, mother and daughter calling to each other across the winter forest. The children watched in wonder. That's Aurora, Rachel explained. Luna's white pup. She's wild, but she stays close, protecting the sanctuary, watching over us like her mother did. So we have 2 guardian wolves now, Tommy said. I guess we do. The session continued successfully. No fires, no emergencies, just children learning about nature, building confidence, creating memories. Rachel watched them grow over 2 weeks and felt proud. This was what she had wanted, what she had fought for. Luna had given her the courage to rebuild, to trust, to believe that something good could come from tragedy. On the final night of the session, Rachel hiked out to a spot overlooking both the sanctuary and the new camp. The moon was full, the forest silent, except for the wind in the pines. She sat on a boulder and looked at everything she had built, everything Luna had made possible. A sound behind her made Rachel turn. Aurora stood 10 feet away. The young white wolf had approached silently. She was larger now, almost full-grown, beautiful and wild. The wolf and the woman looked at each other in the moonlight, neither afraid, both understanding. Your mom is proud of you, Rachel said softly. I'm proud of you. Aurora took a step closer, closer than any wild wolf should come to a human. She was making a choice, Rachel realized, choosing to bridge the gap between wild and human, the same way Luna had. The wolf sat down 3 feet from Rachel, close enough to touch, but maintaining her wildness, her independence. They sat together, watching the moon rise over the forest, woman and wolf, connected by something that transcended logic or science, connected by trust, by respect, by the memory of a day when one wolf decided that some lives were worth saving, even if it might
Cost everything. Rachel thought about the parents who had trusted her with their children, about the kids who had shown such courage, about Luna who had given everything, about the future being built here in this sanctuary, this camp, this place where humans and wild things could coexist, could learn from each other, could create something new. We're going to do good work here, Rachel said to Aurora. Your mum started something important. We're going to carry it forward. The white wolf made a soft sound, almost like agreement. Then she stood and trotted back toward the forest, pausing once to look back at Rachel before disappearing into the trees. Rachel watched her go, then stood and hiked back to the camp, ready for whatever came next, knowing that Luna's legacy would live on, not just in her pups, but in every child who learned to trust the wild, to respect nature, to believe in the impossible. 6 months later, June 2026. Dr. Jennifer Walsh was conducting Luna's routine checkup when she noticed something unusual. The wolf was 14 months post-rescue, healthy, content, living a peaceful life at the sanctuary. But the blood work showed something unexpected. Rachel, you need to see this, Jennifer called. Rachel arrived within an hour. What's wrong? Is Luna sick? Not sick. Jennifer pulled up the test results on her computer. Rachel, I don't know how to explain this, but Luna's DNA, we ran an expanded panel for a research project on wolf genetics, and we found something impossible. What? Luna has genetic markers that match 3 separate wolf populations: Northern Rocky Mountain, Great Lakes, and Canadian Arctic. That combination should not exist naturally. It's like she's a genetic archive of 3 distinct wolf lineages. Rachel stared at the screen. What does that mean? I think, Jennifer chose her words carefully, Luna might be one of the last representatives of an old genetic line, possibly descended from wolves that were thought extinct. The pups she had, especially Aurora, they're carrying those genes forward. Rachel, we're not just talking about one wolf saving children. We might be talking about saving an entire genetic legacy. The implications were staggering. Conservation organizations became involved, genetic studies were launched, and researchers discovered that Luna's lineage traced back to a population of wolves that had been decimated by hunting in the early 1900s, thought to be completely wiped out. But somehow, one line had survived in the remote Wyoming wilderness, hidden, protected, waiting. Aurora and her siblings were now recognized as genetically invaluable. Plans were made for a careful breeding program to preserve the bloodline. Luna had not just saved 95 human lives, she had saved her own species' history. But there was more. In September 2026, a wildlife camera in the Blackstone region captured footage that made Rachel's heart stop. 5 white wolves, adults, moving through the forest together, coordinated, purposeful. One of them was Aurora, grown now, powerful. But the others, Rachel did not recognize them. She showed the footage to Jennifer, who enhanced the images. Rachel, look at this one. She pointed to the largest wolf. See the scar pattern on the shoulder? I'd have to check records, but I think that might be one of the other pups you released 15 years ago, Luna's littermates. You're saying? I'm saying Luna might not have been alone. Her family, her pack, they might
Have been out there all along, watching, and now they're coming together again. Rachel thought about all the times over the years she had felt watched in the forest. Times when she found tracks near the old Blackstone site. Times when deer that should have been easy prey somehow knew to avoid certain areas. What if Luna's pack had been protecting the region all along? What if the fire that December was not the first time they had intervened? The cameras captured more footage over the following weeks. The white wolves were establishing territory around Luna's haven and the sanctuary. They were not threatening humans, but they were present, watching, protecting. It was as if Luna's decision to save those children had created a new relationship between her pack and the humans in the region. On the anniversary of the rescue, December 19th, 2026, Rachel stood at the sanctuary with all 83 children, now teenagers, who had been through the fire. They had come back for a reunion, to honor Luna, to remember. The white wolf was resting in her enclosure, older now, grey touching her muzzle, but still dignified, still strong. As the sun set, the howling began, not from Luna, but from the forest. 5 voices, 6, 7. The pack was calling. Luna lifted her head and howled back, her voice joining with her family's, creating a chorus that echoed across the valley. The teenagers stood silent, listening, understanding somehow that they were witnessing something profound. The white wolves had not just saved them 2 years ago, they were still here, still watching, still protecting. Aurora appeared at the edge of the forest, fully grown now, magnificent. She looked at the gathered humans, at her mother in the sanctuary, and Rachel understood. Luna's legacy was not just survival, it was creating a new understanding between species, proving that the boundaries we draw between wild and civilized, between animal and human, between possible and impossible, were never as solid as we thought. "Thank you," Rachel whispered, knowing somehow that Aurora would understand. "Thank you for everything your family has done." The white wolf dipped her head, almost like a bow, then turned and disappeared into the forest to join her pack. Luna's pack, the guardians of Wyoming's wilderness, who had chosen to save humans instead of avoiding them, who had created a legacy that would protect both species for generations to come.
Rachel looked at the teenagers around her, at the sanctuary behind her, at the forest ahead where white wolves ran free. This was not the end of the story, it was the beginning, and she could not wait to see what came next.